Hello, welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, the Star Trek podcast. I'm Moneca.
And I'm Andrea, and welcome to episode 1 of season 5 of Star Trek Discovery. Oh, we're excited. We are here. It is finally here. This episode gets off to a great start. We have a lot of action, some intrigue. We have the Discovery crew going on a mission to find an 800-year-old ship. What is happening? Are you ready to discuss it? Because we are. Moneca, what did you think of the initial reactions?
Oh my goodness, I'm so glad Discovery's back, and it's back in an amazing way. It starts out with action and it continues and builds and builds. And there's four romantic storylines in it, which I like. It checks all my boxes. There's multiple plots, there's like lots of interesting character developments, and we have away missions. What do you think about the episode?
I was pleasantly surprised in a very good way. And I will admit, when I first watched this episode, I probably watched it at the wrong time. I watched it and I was really sleepy. And it actually kept my attention. I was like, oh gosh, I should have started it later. But from the jump, this episode kept me hooked. It was my caffeine, it was my coffee, it was everything. Seeing Michael, just seeing like almost a 180 of who she is at the beginning of this episode, of it being like the final season, and then seeing who she was at the first episode of like season 1 was so refreshing to see how much she has grown and has like improved and changed throughout these season arcs. Like really, in that first episode, I was just like, oh, you know who you remind me of? Season 1, Georgia Philippa. That's who you remind me of, Michael, right now. I was just like in awe of how like beautiful like this whole like even though it's the first episode of this season, it was almost like I'm seeing who you've become over these last 4 seasons. Because y'all know she's annoyed me a couple times. So I truly, truly, truly loved everything I got from Michael this episode. I have literally no notes for her when it comes to like her way she was being a captain. She crushed it. She killed it. I don't care about romance. I'm so sorry, Moneca. You can have that. We'll let you discuss it all. But the meeting the big bads of this season, they seem a little bit more intriguing. They seem fun. They seem dangerous, which we love. It's not just like a science problem. It's like an action and science problem, and I am here for it. So,
Yeah, they're really setting the stage for this season mystery, but they're also recapping storylines and character development from the past. It's
mhm.
nice how they did that throughout this episode.
Yes. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of a deeper dive and talk about some of the things that we liked and maybe this didn't like from this episode. Because while I will say this, because you can always check my records, there were a little things I was like, all right, we could have did that just maybe slightly better. But overall, this episode gets like an A- for me, which is very rare. So deeper dive into the initial scene. Just to give you guys a little bit of how much I loved it, this episode literally started with Michael Burnham on a ship. It was like, oh, never a dull moment. And then like it goes quickly back to show how we got to that moment of her being on the ship. I think that was probably one of the best openers I've seen on Star Trek. This I think in Star Trek, like that was like the best, like I think it for me, it just sort of showed, all right, we're just gonna throw you into this mission. There is no like almost lead up, how it's almost like 2 or 3 episode lead up that we get in every other season. And in this episode, it's like, you know what? We're throwing you right in the action from the jump. Let's go. What did you think of the initial scene?
Yes, because it starts with what Sonequa Martin Green and Discovery does very well. So Sonequa Martin Green and Giorgio, like and Michelle Yao, they're really good at stunts. And so her acrobatic stunts for landing there, I'm sure there was a lot of rope work stuff behind the scenes, but that agility, right? That action, that lots of futuristic technology there. That's so intriguing, and that's what I really love about Discovery. I know it's really expensive to produce, but that's the reason why my family invests in a Paramount, is to see more than what we can see on like traditional free TV.
Missed, like I honestly thought I had fell asleep because I've never seen the episode start immediately like, oh, we're in the action. And I was like, oh, wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. What did I miss? What did I miss? And I rewinded and I was like, I didn't miss anything.
Right.
that, that that part really shocked me. And I was like, okay, we're jumping right into the action. Okay, season 5, I see you. You heard our episodes. You heard my remarks in the past season of Trekkie and Beyond. Okay.
Yeah, it was a long 12-minute teaser.
Yes.
Before they got to actually the start, is before the logo started. So it took 12 minutes to get to that point. And I was pulled in the first 30 seconds. But it captured the gist of, I think, what the season's about, this adventure. And then she stated that, oh, this is not the way my day had started, the way I thought my day was going to go. I think that's what she said. And then they did a flashback to earlier scenes,
which is what we all love and hate: awkward work parties. Because I love a good work party. My holiday party, I am cutting up, having fun. We're sitting there rapping all together. It's amazing. But this was not that. This was Federation having fun with these drinks that I'm just going to say, I don't care if we're in the future. You do not put your finger, your gloveless finger in my drink, ma'am, to pop a bubble. I saw that. No, I ain't drinking this. Your hand did not, I don't care what, your hand did not have a glove on it. Do not pop my bubble and think I'm going to drink it. No. No. Where's your glove? Use a tool. I do not care. Do not use your finger. I will not be drinking that drink.
Sounds like she popped your bubble. Yes.
Yes, she did.
Yes, but it was that awkward moment I felt for Paul. He was like, I don't really want to be here, but I'm here because it's work. I should, but I don't really know my role. I'm supposed to be this imaginary thing, but what is that? And so Bloom is like stating, are we staying? Are we going? I just need to know, because I think she felt like it's part of a group. And when you go to work parties, you traditionally go with a group and you stay together just to have company in case there's awkward conversations. So it was really cool, relatable.
Yeah, relatable, super relatable to my old company work parties.
But also, Tilly spotted someone that she wanted to have additional conversations with later. Started out work conversations.
Okay. I take back my earlier statement. There's only one romance I'm interested in, and I love me some Tilly. And if Tilly wants to get some, Tilly should get some, because we love Tilly. She's adorable. She needs love, but not in a way that like she doesn't like. She's like desperate for love, but in the way where she deserves it. She deserves that, because Tilly is that girl, and I love her. And so I there are 3 storylines I do not care about in this episode. There's one that I do. I take it back. Tilly, get you yours, girl. Get you yours.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that one at all. That's fun.
Yeah. But as all things must come to an end, the awkward work party also comes to an end when the Discovery is tasked on a very, very, very secretive, some top security mission.
Red directive.
Thank you. I want to say black directive, but that was not correct. And we see the person who I still believe is evil. I do not care what anyone says. Dr. Kovich is evil. That man, don't trust him. But he basically, Discovery gets sent on a mission, and that sort of takes us right back into how Michael got sort of into that opening scene, which I will say, if they had opened at the party, I probably would have fell asleep in this entire episode. So I'm really happy that it started the way it did, and Michael saying, this is not how I thought my day was going to start, and then went to the party, because otherwise we would have fell asleep during this part, because that would not have been a fun start. So I'm happy the director was like, let's throw him into the action first and then explain why we got there.
Also, because they ended season 4 with a party. I'm glad they didn't start season 5 with a party, because then you would think that it was like the same day, but it's later on in time. So that's another good point about like the switch.
I don't trust Dr. Kovich, and anything that he asks you to do, I want you to take it with a grain of salt, because that man cannot be trusted. I do not care. I do not care. I do not trust this man. And if I am proven wrong, I am proven wrong, but I'm still going to say I don't like you. You could be super, super gung-ho for Starfleet, Dr. Kovich. you did something in your past. Look at me. You did something in your past. And I know you did. I know you did.
Yeah. He makes me think about Section 31. Like, he's
Yeah.
on that darker side, but he's supposed to be for good. But but he unveils I guess our first like treasure or MacGuffin. I feel like that
Mm-hmm.
infinity piece
Mm-hmm.
that Vance passed on to Michael that allowed them to transport into a secret place to have this meeting to talk about this red directive mission. So
Yes.
that's the first time we had seen that, and it seems to be an interesting treasure because it's passed along, and you can only beam into this place with this infinity piece.
I will say, literally 30 seconds before, probably more like a minute before, they were drinking alcohol. And you're sending them on a mission. So that was one of the things where it's just like, that didn't, like, Starfleet, do you not get DUIs? Like, like, because you don't know how much of her crew was drinking, because you're at a party, you don't think you have a mission on the docket. Not to say anyone's going to get inebriated, but like doctors, if you have one drink, you're not allowed to perform, because the alcohol can, like, occlude, like, can mess up your mind, can change the way you're thinking, can make you think. One drink can make someone buzzed. So, like, are we just assuming no one drank at all at this party, even though they were given drinks and they were asking what was literally inside of it? Like, are we just assuming that, being like, do they have shots to take away your inebriation? Because Tilly didn't have that later in the episode, because she was totally done. So my whole question is, Vance, what are you doing? They are literally at a party where alcohol is served, unless there's just no alcohol in that drink. But according to Tilly later, yes, there was.
We also know that Tilly's a lightweight from other adventures. But she drank some coffee and was better to snap.
So that was my only hiccup about this part. When, like, literally they got sent on a mission. I was like, weren't they all at the party having drinks? And, like, that part just didn't sit well with me, because it's like, I would have been like, hey, I had 2-3 drinks. I don't think I should be flying through space right now.
Right, and I was getting the impression not only was it a work party, but they were sort of like on shore leave, because lots of people had to then run back to the bridge.
Yes.
They were like doing whatever casually they wanted to do after hours. Detmer wasn't even in her seat, the pilot.
So, like, make it make sense. What, like, whew. Starfleet, who's driving your ships? But they go to where they're supposed to, and they find a very, very, very old Romulan ship. And they realize that they're not the only people aboard this ship. This is where we meet our two antagonists for this season, preferably for the season. And I will admit, I'm loving them. They are evil. they are like, I love them so much. They are just like what you want from bad guys. Like, I don't really want a villain who has, like, a point. I want a villain who just wants, like, to do the bad things. And Lark and Mole are just, like, really good together. And they have, like, I feel like they have, like, a romance of their own throughout this episode. The way that they, like, care for each other. But also just the way that they're just having fun, almost, it seems. Like, the way that they're just sort of fight when they were on the ship, and when they got off, where they were flying, even when we saw them with the sand people, on, like, they are just sort of in sync with each other in a way where it's like, you don't always see that. Like, you see Starfleet people being a team, but not always where they're, like, almost are like each other's other half, in the sense. Like, Mole and Lark are just going to be a very interesting set of villains this season, just because they are equals, which we don't always see. We see there's someone in charge and there's someone who they're, like, answering to. They care about each other, and they care about each other almost in, like, a healthy manner, which you also don't see through a lot of our Star Trek villains, unless they're like a family. But even then, someone always changes their mind and then someone gets killed. But I'm loving them. They're smart. They're making great decisions. I mean, there's bad for Starfleet, but they're making great decisions throughout this entire episode, and it's a little wrong that I might be rooting for them. What did you think of our villains?
once once I got to know them a little bit more, I was thinking, oh, they feel like a Bonnie and Clyde
Yes,
duo
yes,
in it
yes.
together, and they're scavengers, so they're like in the Wild West, kind
Mhm.
of robbing to and they're treasure hunters. They I think take items from and then resell it,
Mhm.
right? But it seems though this is a mirror of Michael and Book from the scavenger days we didn't see for that year before Discovery ship arrived into the future, way projected into the future.
Mhm.
So it's going to be interesting to see those dynamics too. And you know me, I like a power couple, so this
I
is
love a power couple too. Like I know I say I'm dead inside, but I love a good power couple. I love them better even when they just like only care about themselves and just like forget the world. We're what matters. We love it, and I like that you said that they're parallel because they are. Um, they are Michael and Booker without like the moral compass that both Michael and Booker have, which is because like Michael and Booker also had that like in tandem way of like fighting together and working together. We saw it a lot through the past seasons, so like they have that same sort of mesh, except they both had a conscience. Granted, their conscience didn't always line up next to each other, but they both had a separate conscience. And it's like Mole and Lark are like, we want money. I want money. You want money? I want money. Okay, let's go get this money. Let's go get this money. They are definitely like a Bonnie and Clyde. Like their conscience is like, we want more money. um, so it's they're I think I'm really gonna like them in this season. Granted, I don't want them to win. Out loud, I'm saying that. Inside, I have a thing for you, Mole and Lark. I love you so very much. Uh, Monica's like, oh, we see what side of the law you're on, Andrea. But the thing that Mole and Lark are trying to like locate and sell, or I say quote unquote sell, because I think they're just using this as a way to build up to find the pieces for themselves. Dr. Kovage is also looking for, and I still don't trust him, which is why I don't want him to win. I don't want him to find this because I don't. There's a reason some mysteries do not need to be solved, and we're introduced to this Romulan doctor who died 800 years ago, who was trying to hide this information from being used. And sometimes, if you are not the person who created it, if you're not the person who understands it, if even the creators themselves break something up because it's too dangerous to be used, stop trying to assemble. Like, stop it. Don't do this. Stop trying to solve. Like, some mysteries don't need to be solved. And in this mystery, we get a little throwback to Captain Picard. It's one of his old missions. So I'm excited for this mystery, but I just also don't want them to solve it because government should not have everything. Like maybe you shouldn't have all the power to create life. Maybe you shouldn't. So stop. What are
because
your thoughts on the
basically
mystery?
there's a reason why this is a secret.
Yes.
So it's a storyline we have kind of heard before, but with a different twist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I feel like with other seasons for Discovery, it was just too theoretical.
Yes. And this is like tangible. Yes. Yes. Yes.
But a MacGuffin pieces to come together and getting clues along the way. It seems also poetic. So Easter eggs for those that connect. And if you're not familiar with other Star Trek, it seems like it's okay.
So with Mole and Lark sort of just like being the total badasses that they are and being amazing and my secret crushes, they are taking what they found on the Romulan ship that they were able to get away from Michael and our new Captain Raymer, which we'll talk about later because Andrea might have another crush. They are like able to escape and get away from Starfleet, which sadly should not happen. But in that case, it opens up the door to us meeting one of our old characters and one of our favorite characters. And I was sort of annoyed with him a lot during the last season, Booker, because Moneca, as you know, as you want to know, Booker and I are on a bit of a pause at the moment. So because I'm still mad at him from last season. But we need him back. We need him back because only he can help Starfleet figure out how to find Mole and Lark. And in doing that, Booker introduces us to a character who looks a little familiar. Just gonna throw that out there. I had to like stop for a moment and just be like, are you who I think you are? But you weren't. But it was a old collector who was outside of Starfleet space, that was not on a Starfleet planet, named Fred. He was a little bit of a collector, a seller, a little bit of a pawn shop owner, if you would say. And Monica, what did you think of Fred?
Oh, so Fred reminded me of Data from Star Trek Next Generation.
Yes, he
And
did.
they made lots of connections there. At first, I noticed the eyes and the skin color, and then like that hair.
And almost all the way that he spoke. I was just like, are you who I think you are? Or are you playing? Like, what's going on? Because this isn't matching up to the history I have in my head.
Right. So a synthetic. And because we've had other discussions about Zora and Badgie and other AI, I've been thinking about like what happens to like other versions of Data, because we also know that like Data had a daughter or created a daughter and other things like that. So what about other robotic and AI? And we were introduced to Fred, who was able to quickly read that journal book. Just quickly scanning it and taking snapshot pictures of everything they were able to see. But Fred stated that he hadn't seen that for like 622 for the 622 years that he's been around. So that means that Fred has seen a lot of treasures from couriers. And I agree with the Federation utilizing Book to help find out more about how to proceed with this treasure hunt, because the best way to learn about, like, I don't know, a crime affiliate is to have someone that also has been involved in crime that knows the inside scoop, and in this case, where the best pawn shops are, and so forth like that.
And while I like them bringing back Book, I feel like Starfleet has like a way of never actually punishing people.
Yeah.
Because, like, I get what he did last season. I get why he did what he did. Still doesn't make it correct. But it's like, shouldn't you maybe not have as much freedom as you do? Because you've already proven with any ounce of freedom you get, like, you just go rampant. So, like it's just, it was sort of weird that, like, he didn't even have, like, an ankle monitor. Like, come on.
Yeah. I'm disappointed at the level of clearance that he has.
Yes.
I think that they could use him and keep him in a separate place. Like when Michael was first brought on board, she was in a separate place, and then she was brought in to be a roommate with Tilly. But brought on board after her
after still a hill that I would die on. That was not her fault. But yes, I get the thing.
What we're noticing too is another parallel, that Book is on a work release program, and it seems as though whenever the Federation has a mission in which they need to utilize like an asset skill set, then they will bring that prisoner back and give them a little bit more room. We also know that in Vulcan cultures, there's a lot of rehabilitation. It seems like that's the case too with this. So they're giving Book a lot of flexibility, a lot more flexibility than I would,
Mm.
but just um, I don't know. I think there should be a little bit more restrictions with him. But
Yes, because regardless if you understand like I do why he did what he did, regardless if like you're like, hey, yeah, he was angry, like he wants to kill the people who killed his entire planet. Like I understand that doesn't make it right. You still just like, hey, you have shown propensity to stealing a ship, so let's not give you your own huge room with like access to all the data and files that you want on the ship. Like let's just maybe not do that. Um but also with meeting Book, we're also introduced to another character who I'm quite like. And I'm going to admit why I like this Captain Raynor. He reminds me of a less refined season 1 Michael Burnham. Um, so in this scene when Michael is on the ship and she's tethered, and then like that, and Raynor comes in and has a tractor beam, he's not ready to let go of Mole and Lark's ship. And Michael is like telling him she's being rational, like, well, we'll find him later. It's not worth you dying over. Season 1 Michael would have been holding the tractor beam. Season 1 Michael would have not let go of the ship. And so it's like I see him as a season 1 Michael of doing what needs to be done, not necessarily if it's Starfleet regulations. And this is why I like him, because we're seeing, it's like this. I like him for the fact that he's going to be like Michael's like mirror, and she can be to him what like Philippa was to her. And what Saru was to her, because we have seen how much she's grown, but we haven't seen her really sort of mentor someone else in the sense that she was mentored. We haven't seen her teach anyone else the lessons that she truly has learned over these last 4 seasons. So I really like this captain because he reminds me of an earlier version of her, the person who's willing to take risks, who's not following always Starfleet's orders, who talks back and is like, you're not really helping yourself, sir. So it's so it's like almost refreshing to see that someone else out there who was like her. So that's why I like him. I like him because he is like a mirror to Michael.
that's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about it that way, because during this whole chase, this sand chasing through the sand, and how like snarky he was about like, are the two of you okay? Like, how's this gonna work? It
I
made
love interrupting things. Like
right. It made me think about like Michael and Ash, and it gave me flashbacks to Lorca. So I was getting the Lorca vibe, like, do you have other motives? What's your end game here? And because he's also a captain, and he had other plans with his ship, to and firing off orders without really discussing it as a team, like Vance told him to be a team. So I was getting Lorca vibes, but I could see the whole season 1 Michael.
Okay, so yeah, I wasn't getting Lorca vibes from him. You know who I get Lorca vibes from? Dr. Kovich. You, sir, I do not trust. um, oh, Monica's gonna be mad at me one day. So, um, so even with the sand, even with their like race on the sand, when he was like willing to blow up part of the like mountain to stop them from escaping, that was season 1 Michael. Michael was like, we need to do what we need to do to stop them. And not and Philippa was, we need to think of the ramifications of our actions, of what the down like what could happen by us blowing up this like exit portion, like the mountain could collapse and destroy everyone. And so it's just, it's like because of Raynor, I'm seeing how much Michael has grown in her decision making of her captaincy. That is like, it's like, dude, you're just helping me understand how much more awesome Michael has become in the last like 4 seasons. And this 5th season, she is literally killing it as a captain. She is making these amazing decisions. She is putting her people first. She is putting the people first. She is not just going off, running off gun ho and like, let's do what we need to do to like, I can do it. I can do everything. She's delegating a little bit more, not completely, because we still have Michael is still Michael at the end of the day. But like, he is such a good reflection of seeing how much she has grown through everything that she has gone through. And I feel like in the last couple of seasons, I always say, you give us Michael having like a growth moment and then she immediately reverts back. And so I feel like, again, they were listening to our podcast, because I don't see her reverting back, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Especially paired up next to Raynor, is like, you see literally how composed she is, how smart she is, how but how she is good in a crisis, and how she is actually thinking of the bigger picture when she's making decisions versus just the immediate reaction. So Raynor, I love you because you make Michael look better.
Okay.
You're also showing how much she's grown, and I do love that. That's all I could think of every time he came on scene. I was like, that's literally how season 1 Michael would have like responded to all of this. She would have been the one who was like, split up, we can cover more ground. Not, let's stay with the person who knows the market and can get us through everything. Oh, they're getting away, we need to stop them. Blow up the cave so they can't escape. Philippa would have been like, no, because that could throw a backlash to the people down on the planet. So it's like, Michael, you really have grown, and I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Also, thinking back to season 1 of Discovery, the very first scene started out in a desert, which with Michael and Prime Philippa Georgiou, and they were trying to, I think, open up a well for the village there. So it started out with another like desert sandish kind of adventure. So it's interesting that they have circled back to that in this last dance.
Yes, it was nice.
Okay, but one big difference between Michael and Raynor is the fact that Michael has some baggage. And he also mentions that when she was on top of that ship in the very beginning, he's like, I've heard about you too. But Michael and Book there was a little tension there. Not a little, there was a lot in this episode, both on the ship and then also deciding how to approach getting in to see Fred, and the discussions on these vehicles through the desert scene. So there was a lot of stress there, and they officially like broke up through a conversation about like, weren't you supposed to call and I didn't call and all this other stuff, and yeah. So
I'm gonna say Booker says a line like at least twice. He's like, I go where they send me. Basically, almost like one when he's on the ship with her, and she's like, thank you for being here. He's like, I go where they send me. It's like almost like, I'm not here because of you. I'm here because Starfleet sent me here. Even when she tried to even when she commends him on his work, that was his answer. I go where they send me. Like, not, I didn't do that in the goodness of my heart. I didn't like Booker. He doesn't seem whole yet, which again, you lost your entire planet, you lost your culture, you lost so much. So I wouldn't expect him to be whole, but it definitely comes off as I'm not here because I want to be. I'm here because I'm being told to be here. And I'm letting you know I'm only doing what they're telling me to do. I'm going where they're telling me to go. And I feel like that was almost like a little slap in the face, because he's like, I'm not here to see you. I'm here because they assigned me here.
I also think it's because he's not free.
True.
And once you're underneath of someone else's control is a whole other thing. He's given orders, and it's better than being in what he called the clink clink. So,
Right.
So there's that. And then throughout their relationship, they had a level of freedom until he had to join the USS Discovery in sort of this weird ad hoc manner. And then there was a lot more restrictions. But before then, as a courier, all his life really, and he left his planet because he wanted more freedom. And he's been traveling. So I think it's completely different. Two completely opposite ends of the spectrum there.
And there's one other character that we have not really spoken about in this episode. And it's one of the relationships that I just don't see any heat for. Like, I'm just like, where's the passion, people? So don't hate me in the comments because I'm a little dead inside. But there is a promotion in the works, possibly for one of our favorite characters, Saru. He may be able to become a ambassador. And in true Saru fashion, and his girl's fashion, because I can't think of her name at the top of my head,
Karina.
Tarina, they have a discussion of like, should he take the job or not? And he tries to factor her into the position. And I will say, I respect the fact that she was like, leave me out of this. Because everyone under the sound of my voice, you do not pick a job based on your significant other. You pick a job if you want it, if you will enjoy it, if you will love it. Because if that significant other leaves, you're still stuck in that job. So
it was a test. The whole time it was a test. She was testing him.
Still, you do not pick a job based off your significant other. You pick a job if it's what you want, if you've earned it, if you deserve it, and if the pay is good. And then on top of the promotion, and there's another P word coming out in this episode of The Dead Inside. Andrea can't say it. Moneca, I'll allow you to be the happy person in love and talk about it.
So after this dangerous mission, Saru beams over to Tarina and they have a discussion because he's realizing that life is much more precious and that he wanted to just share his love for her. And she said, basically, like, about time. And she said that she wanted to have like a bond with him. And he said, are you proposing? And she said, yes, that's what some cultures call it. So we're going to have a Vulcan wedding. You can't see him on the video, but I'm doing a little Saru hands because I am so excited. I've wanted so much more. I'm not getting it in Strange New Worlds with T'Pring and Spock. And so finally, hopefully, we get to see a Vulcan, the whole wedding ceremony. Bring it on.
Monica's face. My girl's happy, people.
Yes. This is the culture immersion I need. This is the Discovery to Disco I need. Yes. So it's wonderful to see Saru's character evolution, really how he was so fearful and had anxiety before, and he left his family. He didn't even think he was going to live very long, to be able to make a connection like this and a commitment with someone who wants to spend a life with him. I'm like, oh, maybe we'll see Sakal also at the wedding. Oh my goodness.
So, as we come to the end of this episode, of episode 1 of season 5 of Star Trek Discovery, because it's amazing, what are your final thoughts, Moneca?
I'm curious on who's going to replace Saru as number 1, because Saru definitely wants to be closer to Tarina. That means he can't travel with Discovery. He's going to be at a headquarters, I believe, to be like the ambassador for some smaller planets. So who's going to replace him? Who's going to have Michael's back and to be on the ship and all of this other dynamics, because the crew is also used to being together. So it adds a whole other level of complexity if someone new is brought in there or if someone's promoted up. Ooh, plot thickens. Drama.
I have to say, as first episodes go, this has been one of my favorites. It was very action packed. It was like you're hitting the ground running. They didn't like, they explained in the first episode what like basically what the mystery is, who it's connected to, why should we care. We get a lot of answers in episode 1, which I feel like in the other seasons they tried to drag things on, and there's none of that. And it could be because it is the final season, so they just want to put as much as they can in every single episode. They give us some great villains. Like, there's no question of who are we after. Like, no, we know we're after Mole and Lark. Like, we know who our target is, even though I love them. Shout out to them. I love that this episode was, it was everything we needed to make sure people were invested in this final season. And so I'm very excited to see what this season may bring. So, as always, I'm Andrea.
And I'm Anika.
And live
Live
long and
long and
prosper.
prosper.